Oh, it looks like we got it. It looks like we got it. Internet, we're back. We're back, Internet. We're back again. Yes, here we are. All right. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. You guys know that it is Music Monday, and you know that I love Music Monday. And you may remember New Wave Vader recommended this band, Soraia, a wonderful rock outfit out of Philadelphia / Jersey. Well, we are fortunate enough to be joined today by their lead singer, ZouZou. ZouZou, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing good. It's good to be here.
Thanks so much for reaching out. So when I did the podcast, you guys know that once a week we do the podcast where we do a summary of all the stuff we covered on Get Your News On with Ron. Sariah was mentioned, so I added them on the Twitter, and you guys reached out, which was super cool. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Yeah, and I listened to the show too. It was awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I'm a big fan of what y'all are doing as well. So you guys are how would you describe your sound? Like, cuz there's a lot going on with you guys that I really, really appreciate. Like, there's a little bit of I agree with New Wave Vader's description where it's like it's very modern, has a really garage rock and roll sound, but you hear a little bit of like a Zeppelin throwback in the guitars, a little bit of a heart tinge. And then you even have a little bit of like a horror thing going on, which I really appreciate a lot, especially this time of year.
Right.
So yeah, what's all going on there?
Oh, I think mostly we're just like really raw, soulful rock and roll. Like it's kind of a culmination of all the members, which you've just named all of our influences, most of our influences. You know, I grew up listening to like Heart and Joan Jett and like, Zeppelin and a lot Rolling Stones. And then we have Travis, who's one of my co-writers, who grew up listening to basically the Cramps and the Misfits, and you know what I mean? So you mesh that together, you mesh like melody and more like kind of glam pop with like 70s influence and horror. You've got Soraia. Like we kind of cover all those bases. But we're really strong, like we feel really strongly about songwriting and telling stories and, melody and harmonies. So there's a lot of that going on, but I'd say we're good old fashioned, like garage rock, just raw rock and roll,
And of course, where I heard you guys with Little Steven's Underground Garage, which you've been working with the Wicked Cool record label. How has that been? Because I'm a big fan of a lot of the stuff they've been putting out.
Yeah, and it's nice because we signed and they were just kind of starting to grow, and they've been growing and growing every year, and people know the label now. And we signed with them at late 16 and recorded our first album with them in early 17, and it did really well. We had good, press for it, and then they were really supportive, and that's how we grew our following in New York City. But they kind of go for like that kind of sound, like a really raw roots kind of based rock and roll sound in all the acts that they've signed, especially recently. They just signed like Jesse Malin and the Dolly Rots and Ryan Hamilton, and so it's a good eclectic mix too. It's some West Coast bands on there too, but a lot of New York based bands.
A lot of New York stuff, some West Coast stuff, and then they're even like dipping their toe in the UK some too, it seems. Yeah. So did you get, and I'm going to out myself as a total Springsteen nut here, but which I am, and maybe you are too, Philly, Jersey. But did you get to interact directly with Little Steven at all? Wicked Cool Records, by the way, is Little Steven's record label for anybody not in the know.
Yeah. Steven's the one who actually, I met him in late 2010. He'd heard a song I wrote called Runaround with my then producer, and he was a fan, and he called me into his office, and we had like a 3-hour talk about music and the business of music and rock and roll. And he wanted to hear more of what I had. And we didn't, like I said, we didn't sign till 16, but Steven followed us all along and kind of nurtured our songwriting and always supported us on Underground Garage from 2013 on. He played us. And finally, he actually came out to see us with Maureen, his wife, at the Bitter End in New York City after he started playing us. And he worked with us from that point on. He produced a 10-song show with us, our live show, and we kept working on that for the next 2 years. And then with the album Dead Reckoning, he wrote a song for it. He produced 2 songs on it. And on this new record, same thing, he produced one of the songs on it. And he's directly involved. Like, we'll send the demos and he gives us notes, like how to make the songs better. And he does that with all his bands, but he's definitely been involved with us for 9 years now. So
it's so cool what he's doing. I mean, as the years have gone by, I mean, in my family's house, there are 2 Bruce Springsteen posters on the same floor. There's a big frame photo of Bruce Springsteen in the living room. And then there's actually a painting of Bruce Springsteen that I actually had commissioned. It was a gift that I got from my parents one year. It was commissioned by, do you know who Hamel on Trial is? The anti-folk artist?
No, but I'm going to look him up because
you should look him up. Hamel's great, but Ed, that's his real name. Ed's a buddy of mine. He does paintings on commission. So I commissioned him to do a Springsteen painting for my family one year for the holidays.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they're both on the same floor. And then there's another Springsteen poster in the basement. So big Springsteen fans. My now fiance, on our first date, we were talking about vinyl, and she mentioned that she had Greetings from Asbury Park on vinyl. And in my head, I said, I'm going to marry this girl.
Factor. You know what's funny? I just wanted to show this to you. I had to pick it up because I was at a friend's house yesterday. We played in College Park, Maryland. So we stayed with this friend of mine, Kat Porterfield. And in her basement, she had this poster of Little Steven. Can you see it?
Oh, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was like, oh my God, look at that poster. Because I was like, I mean, I find people give me Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul records from before too. But yeah, I mean, Steven, the one thing I knew about him when we first started working with him was that he came up with that. Like he produced and arranged a lot of Bruce's early work, aside from obviously playing in the band and being a great harmony singer and
it just being like, I mean, him, I think like the biggest, most prominent members of the E Street Band, not that it's a competition by any means. It seems like they are in so many ways a family, but it's like Little Steven and Clarence. Those were, and Clarence, rest in power. But, I mean, those were like the big, just the bigger than life members of that band.
Yeah.
That just added so much. And then Little Steven in particular, as the years have gone by, I've just grown to appreciate him so much. Mostly because of what he's doing with the Sirius XM station, what he's doing with Wicked Cool Records. And when you hear that guy on the mic, I mean, the dude's an encyclopedia when it comes to music. He's incredible. And I actually even did you check out his Netflix series? I actually thought it was kind of cool, Lilyhammer.
I kind of have to. I go like I feel like if I don't, there's something like missing in my interaction with him. So
he might ask you about it, and then if you haven't seen it, you're gonna have to try to play it wicked cool, and that might be different.
So humble. He never brings that stuff ever.
Really?
I brought up the Sopranos episode with him and Adriana. He's like, oh, that was. I didn't want to. Yeah, no, that was. I didn't want to talk about it. Basically.
Really? Oh,
Not with me anyway. I don't know about other people, but with me, kind of was like he sticks with the music. He wants to stay. He wants to stay on what we're doing.
He wants to stay on your work.
Yeah, I did want to say something that you brought up about what he's doing in rock and roll, and I was lucky. I went to see him be honored by the Count Basie probably 3 years ago now, and he talks about how it took him. He had to fight to get that on air. And nobody wanted it. They didn't think it was going to work. And now they're like all over the world and like, making opportunities for bands that would never get, like bands like us, like they don't know where to put us. But he just admired us and put us on and made us,
So wait, I'm sorry. What did he have to fight? The station itself? Or
nobody wanted to pick up his idea.
Really?
No. And he fought for it. And it's been 14 years now. It's been on air. And it's just grown, and he like numbers. And I was like, thank God somebody fought for it, because the opportunity is given just to the bands, to people who actually don't know rock and roll, like and have never heard of rock and roll, because commercial radio, let's be honest, doesn't always play maybe things that people
putting it gently. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it that way.
All my musician friends do the same thing. They put it gently when it comes to commercial radio. They're just like, commercial radio leaves a little bit. It's like
motivated, believe me. But
you don't want to see like outsiders. Like we can just say, yeah, it's the worst thing ever. They homogenized radio. They totally gutted it, and it's evil incarnate.
I'll let you say it.
I just said it.
Yeah, but yeah, Steven, and I just did this interview about Steven, and I found out that he gave all these tapes before he had the show where he was just kind of like trying to develop to like people like Eddie Vedder and stuff. Like it's crazy. Like he really worked on that, you know. And I love listening to Underground Garage, not just because we're on it, which is nice, but you do hear like the history of some of these songs and where they came from, and it kind of connects you more to the music than this like Spotify, like, which I'm guilty, I listen to it too, but where it's like, you know, kind of just consumerish, you know what I mean? It's more of an experience on his station.
And something personal is missing too. And yeah, I'm the same way. I use Spotify, I use Pandora. They're useful tools in discovering new music. Absolutely. But what's very special about something like the Underground Garage is it kind of captures that beauty of this is a DJ with independent taste, with a perspective, and they're creating a playlist with a theme, with a point of view. And this is music they want to expose you to, and there's a reason for it. Whenever Rodney Bingenheimer is on the air, I don't want to miss it if I'm driving. You know, I will have that station on if he is on the air, even if I might not care for a particular song, I will wait. You know, same with Marky Ramone, they moved him to First Wave, but you know, same with Palmyra Del Rey. I mean, you know, who's a musician herself. You know, there's just a certain kind of flair and creativity there. And the only place where that kind of stuff is still alive is on non-commercial radio, and on places like the Underground Garage. So it's such a cool thing. And I've had Sirius XM for a couple years now. It was a gift from my label. There's a handful of comedy labels in the country. I'm on one of them. So that was it.
Gift.
Huh?
Wow, that's a really cool gift from a label.
Isn't it? That's a real, yeah, totally. So, you know, that was my gift, was a Sirius XM subscription. And at first I was really into Faction when they really highlighted hip hop and punk. And then Faction went away. And it kind of forced me, because I knew Underground Garage existed, but I didn't know much about it. I was like, I think it's Little Steven's thing. I don't know much. But when that went away, I was sort of looking for something else to be like my go-to. Right. And it really quickly, it was Underground Garage. And I was like, how did I not find out about this from day one? How did I not really dive into this first? But
that's a really cool story. I have to tell you real quick. I just back in 2010, when I first had met with Steven and was talking to him about songs, and he's like, write a few more songs in this vein and let's talk again. And I was kind of like, okay. And we had gone to California to tour probably for the first time, I think. And I was we got a rental car with that station, with Sirius XM. And all we listened to was Underground Garage. And I was like, how cool would it be if he would play us on his station? You know what I mean? Like that was a dream. So it happened, you know, and it's just, I remember not knowing if the band was current or not. The Pretty Things I heard on there, and I went to Amoeba Records in LA and bought it like right away. And then I bought a record player. So it's like, you know, I don't want to be like, hey, Underground Garage, maybe buy a record player, but you know, it kind of did, you know, it's just, it connected me back to like the love of music I had when I was little and first discovered it, which is
totally. And not only do they play new stuff, but, and then, you know, I want to get more specifically into you guys soon, but, you know, like they also, sometimes you'll be like, oh, I missed the boat on these guys, because they have such a theme for like garage rock and roll. It's very timeless in so many ways. So I'll be like, oh, these guys were around in the 60s and I just missed them. You know, because they didn't have a ton of commercial success, but they were a garage rock and roll band from the 60s. I'm a little bummed out when that happens, because whenever I discover a new band or new to me, I'm always stoked, because I'm hoping they're coming to town soon. So when I discover like, oh, I'm 50 years too late on this one.
Next life.
Next life. But yeah, but it's still cool nonetheless that it's like, oh, the first band I'm thinking off the top of my head, the Raspberries. I never knew about them until Underground Garage. And I'm like, how did I missed this? And this is amazing, amazing music. And then if Little Steven's on the mic, he will tell you the life story of all this stuff. And it's amazing. But, and one of the great bands he brought to the surface is you guys. So I heard Evergreen, which is the newest single. Right. And that's going to be on an upcoming album, Dig Your Roots, which is coming out in March of 2020. And one of the things that you guys recorded recently, which I also heard on Underground Garage, you did a cover of Rebel Rebel that I thought was such a fun take on that song. I think it's very gutsy to cover Bowie. And you guys did it in a very unique, original, and cool way. If Bowie was still with us, I guarantee he would love it. At least I strongly believe he would.
Thank you.
So how did that come about?
It's funny. We actually, last year, we were going on tour, and one of the best paying gigs that kind of, you get a gig that pays kind of for the next 2 or 3. And it was one of those gigs. They're like, the only caveat is you have to do half a set of 2 of the artists you love. And I was like, well, that's cool. We'll cover, half-hour covers and half-hour originals. All right, And we covered Joan Jett and David Bowie. And when we did Rebel Rebel, I've always been a huge fan of that song. And part of it is I kind of hit it because, if you're a real deep cut Bowie fan, Rebel Rebel's like, oh, it's Rebel Rebel. Everybody knows Rebel Rebel. It's not so unique and cool. But I've always been a huge fan of, like, when it's Hot Tramp, like, what a great line, like just the way you're talking. And you don't know if you're a boy or a girl. It's like, it's just at the time when it was written, wow, you know what I mean? And it applies so strongly today, and that's the approach I took with it. Our guitarist told us to listen to a live version Bowie had done in the early 2000s of the song. And the early 2000s, he starts out with just that guitar and the vocal, and then it hooks in. And there's some like percussion in the front. And then little Steven heard it and rearranged it for us a little bit. And then we went in and produced it with Jeff Sanoff, and it came out like that. So
was there ever any hesitation where it's like, should we go for this? Or was it totally like, we got something special?
No, it was complete hesitation. There was never, we got something special. Not for a second. And I think for me in particular, it's hard because it's Bowie. But I felt that way covering the New York Dolls too. I was kind of like, oof, because you're like, as a singer, as a vocalist, you're trying to like respect the songwriter and the singer, especially when they're that well known and such a big social consciousness, and not fall prey to the expectations of what you think others want to hear you say. So I just knew, I pictured somebody I know singing it to that person, and that person totally fit at that time in my life when I was singing that vocal. So it worked. It happened to work because it was personal too. So, but yeah, it worked out. Sometimes you have these great live songs and people respond to them live, but you record them and people are just like, nah, it's just part of the way it goes. But that one I'm really proud of. And it's funny, a good friend of ours just said the same thing. He thought Bowie would be proud of that one.
I think so. Is that going to be on the album? Are you guys going to put it on the album or no? Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, but that's what Steven does. When he releases his artists, they release a couple singles and the B-sides are never on the album. So you can only get them if you get the single. So yeah. That's
awesome.
There's another cover on the album.
There's going to be a cover on the album though.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, all right. Well, we will all wait in anticipation. That is awesome. I saw Joan Jett when I was 17, and I had this girlfriend at the time, and it's high school, and I think we got some booze or whatever, and I forget how it happened because this was a lifetime ago, but we got in an argument about something, and she was upset with me, and she's like, I just want to leave, and the show was pretty much over, and I was like, all right, fine, we'll just leave. So we left, and we talked it out or whatever, and we made up. But then I heard from a distance, Joan Jett had re-entered the stage and was playing Crimson and Clover. And I was like, why? Why?
That's it. Done with that one.
I thought about it. I thought about being like, you know what? On second thought, we're done. This is. But
did you go back in?
We didn't go back in. We couldn't get back in. Yeah, we couldn't get back in. So I had to hear Crimson and Clover from a distance, and I have not seen Joan Jett since.
No. Yeah, we just opened for at October 25th, and we opened for a few times now. So that's.
I heard she's really cool. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, inspiring personally, and just watching her from a side stage viewpoint was really cool for me. I'm a huge music fan. Like that's at heart, that's my first thing is I love music. It inspired me to do what I do. So she's one of the hugest inspirations for me. So to be able to open for her and you know, also watch her and see what a good human being she is. She gives back a lot. Like a lot of the artists I work with that are larger and on that larger scale, Little Steve and her, they all give back. They give back to younger artists. They give back to up and comings. They give back in other ways. So it's interesting. It's a good group to be a part of, you know.
So where did you grow up and what got you into music in the first place?
I grew up just in a suburb of Philadelphia, and
Okay.
I remember anytime I was a very quiet kid. I always wanted to be a singer, always. So I know that's not from anything but something deeper inside me because nobody in my family were singers. So it's not like I came from this musical background, like you were just like thrown into it or I was going to church or anything. It was just something I always wanted to do. And music, like, I mean, that sounds kind of like common, but like music really saved my life. I was a dark kid. Like I had a lot of like darker thoughts, like negative thoughts about, you know, my own life. And just every time something went wrong, I didn't know how to handle it well. And so music always gave me this outlet. Actually, I wouldn't even call it an outlet, like something to focus on that gave me a lot of joy. And it's funny because I wasn't a huge Bruce Springsteen fan growing up, but I always heard that Christmas song. The
Santa Claus, yeah.
Yeah, Santa Claus coming down. You're gonna get a new saxophone for Christmas.
Yeah.
Every time I heard that, I remember at 15 years old hearing that and thinking, and I'd heard it a bunch of times before that, but at 15, I was going through, it was like my sophomore year of high school. My parents were going through a divorce, and it was just, I was really lost, you know, and I wasn't like cool, you know. So I remember hearing that and going like, one day I'm going to be in a cool like Asbury Park bar on Christmas Eve with my friends, and they're going to be in my band, and we're going to sing stuff like that and have a good time like that. And I still get choked up about it because, you know, I did that. Like, you know,
it's a beautiful story in Asbury.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there was like a cassette of Christmas carols that my parents would play. And I never cared for Christmas music, still don't.
Yeah.
Except for that one song. And that was my first exposure to Springsteen as well, where I was just like, play that Rockin' Santa Claus song again. And my parents would have to rewind it on the cassette tape to play it again, because that was the only song I was interested in. And then, of course, I discovered you know, Born to Run after that and stuff like that. But that's, so you actually did have a band and you played Bruce's Santa Claus at an Asbury Park bar on Christmas.
Oh, we didn't play that song. Sorry.
Okay.
We played Christmas Eve. We played New Year's Eve. We played New Year's Eve. Like we're playing this year, December 30th, I think again. And it's like, you know, I have to go back to that when things get hard or, you know, you start getting a little weary. You got to remember, like, that's where you came from. But like all those people have been in my life. Like, you know, there was a period I worked with John Bon Jovi as well. And
wow.
The Jersey guys, like I've known, like, you know what I mean? Like have embraced me and my style. And I think because they all came from that, like, you got to get them up. You got to get them up. And that's what I heard in that song. Like I heard like, man, they're having a good time. It's like contagious, you know, and music ultimately is like a good time. And it's like a much higher form of communication than words, just the words had they sat in the lyric by themselves, like, you know. And it's a collaborative effort. Like it's very not I inspire, but we, and that's really important for us all to, that's how I got involved. I totally took that to a different level, but anyway, that's how I got involved in music. Like I knew I had to do that. Like,
so how did Soraia specifically start? Because I know you've all been active in various things in the past, and this band's been around since about 2013. So how did that come to fruition?
I just decided, I got really sick, and I had been singing and taking vocal lessons, and I wanted to be a singer. And like I said, since second grade. And I was a drummer before that because I always had a low voice and I thought I wasn't a singer. And then by like high school, late high school, I started singing. But I just thought I wasn't a singer. Like I thought you had to be born a singer and have that kind of perfect technical voice. I don't know where it's kind of ignorant and I don't know where that came from, but I think it was my own insecurities and kind of closed-mindedness. But when
I think Bob Dylan disproved all that years ago.
Yes, he did. But I got super sick, and I thought, man, and it was really a moment. I thought, what do I want to do? Like, what if I were to die like tomorrow or a year from now? am I happy? Like, I was really young, like, and it was a possibility, you know. I was really sick, and I quit my job and I started singing full time. I started singing at open mics every night, or well, not every night at first, but most nights of the week. We were always last because we were terrible. I found myself a guitarist that I could sing with, and as time went on, I just formed a band and started. I remember
was it the Soraia guitarist that you were
not
playing with?
now.
Okay, okay.
No, I was a guy I was dating at the time, and he didn't even really want to play guitar, but it was like, well, we got to hang out every night, and he played guitar for me. And then when I formed the band, I ended up getting a producer. I had a drive to be successful beyond just doing it in my basement. I did want to reach further. Again, I didn't want to just do cover songs. Somebody had told me, if you really want to put yourself into a song, you have to write songs. I didn't want to write songs. I was intimidated to write songs. And I learned with the best. Like, eventually I started working, like I said, I worked with Steven. I worked with Little Steven, John Bon Jovi, Billy Falcon. My co-writer now I've been writing with the longest. I wrote with our guitar player. I don't know. Then songwriting became more primary and vocalizing became more primary. And then I'm back to performing as being more primary. So it's like, they've all taken their place in my heart, and it's grounded in there now. But that's how it's kind of like I didn't really stumble on it. I've always had a desire to sing, like I told you, since like second grade. But to really believe that I could do it and keep a group of people together, that's probably the hardest thing. And keep them focused on the goal, and take the hits. You take a lot of hits.
I can only imagine, because, when being on the road as a comedian is kind of a similar endeavor, but it's different in a lot of ways, because it's like I don't have to worry about anyone else, and I don't have to worry about equipment.
Yeah, we've had our stolen a few times. So we've had our stolen a few times,
and that is such a common story. So to me, it blows my. I mean, when I see bands making it today, it makes me so happy. Yeah. But it also, like, I can only imagine, and I think part of it might just be growing up, right? But it's like there's so many factors going on when, the bassist might decide he wants to have a kid. The drummer might decide they want to go get that PhD. There's just so many things, especially today. So it's like, was there a specific moment where you guys were just like, okay, this is what we got to be doing. We are Sariah. This is it. Like, was there a specific moment?
I think with some of us there is. I know Brianna, our drummer's in. I know Travis, our bass player, my co-writer, and I've written with Brianna too on this next record, are in. As far as people leaving and staying, I realized, because I've lost so many players, and sometimes because they just, didn't fit with our personality, or sometimes they just weren't built for the road, or sometimes they just wanted to get married, or they wanted to start a career and be more financially stable. There's a million reasons to quit. And Steven actually did a really cool quote on our last record about that, about like people that have to do it. If they have a choice, they're going to take it. And I've worked with a lot of people that were uber talented musicians, uber talented songwriters, that they had another choice and they took it. And I can't let that, like, we've let ourselves choose and accept the bad with the good where it comes to being in a band. Like, people will leave and people will have life happen. And some people will leave because they have to leave. They don't have a choice. But that doesn't, if anything, it puts more of a chip on my shoulder and on our collective shoulder, to do more and more and be better and better and go after more. It's weird how it works. It's like, you think you would take this hit and you'd be down, and it used to knock me down. And now it doesn't. Now it actually puts a little bit more of a chip on my shoulder. Like, okay. You know what I mean? And not anger. It's sometimes a little anger at first, depending how they leave. But a lot of times, like, it's letting go. Just being okay with letting go and knowing my purpose isn't tied to their level of commitment. But I know who's committed. And I believe in that. And if I were doing it alone, I could never do it. You need a team. But I think once you decide that this is for you, and you don't have let your own doubts kind of sway you, those people find you. It's like a big magnet. You find the people that are serious. And working with Steven, he's a serious person. Working with our label, it's a serious label. but the people we play with, when they're not serious, it's a drag. You know what I mean? And it's not a drag for the whole thing, but it's more fun when you're working with people that are really, they've got their eye on a bigger prize than, you know, they don't look at like the little ripple and go like, oh darn. They go, okay, this is part of the bigger picture, you know?
Yeah. I mean, your peer group is just so important.
Yeah.
And you all have a damn good one.
Yeah,
I'm disputing that. Do you have any like what are some solid road tips you kind of abide by?
Road tip?
Yeah, like when you're out touring, like I have a couple. Like for me, I really have to be mindful, and I didn't do this at first, but I started to do this real quick. Like I have to be very mindful of diet. I have to be very careful. I have to really pace myself. I managed to, and this was even back when, because I lived in my car for a little while.
Yeah.
I managed to quit fast food entirely.
It's good.
Just like totally, like I was just able, because I was just like on the road. It is always tempting you. It is always the easy solution. And so I was just like, I have to just cut it out and boycott it.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to fall too many times. So I completely cut it out entirely. I would travel with a cooler. Like there were all kinds of things that I did to try to figure it out, go to grocery stores, whatever. I learned how to make ramen in a coffee maker. Don't recommend it. Not that was any better than fast food. I'm just saying.
I've never tried it. I wish I
Don't try it. Well, don't do that. You're a singer. That's like, I feel like that's just wrong.
Well, I definitely exactly what you said. As a singer, I've gotten sick. I've gotten nodules on my cords. I from not warming up or not cooling down. I've paid the price for that. So now when I tour, I work on my flexibility a month out. And I'm not perfect because I know this last tour I didn't do that. I only did it like 4 days out, but I still did it. But I try and work on my flexibility. I have like vocal exercises, and I always warm up. Always.
Oh yeah.
Cool down. And the longer the show, the longer the warm up. Now I don't get nodules and lose my voice in 2 days. I mean, the type of singing I do, it's hard. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the chords. So I have to make sure my hearing is good. Like I make sure that everywhere we play is good sound. I think mostly I won't eat fast food at all because it's even the after effect of like, you just don't feel right the next day.
Yeah, you feel like shit. And especially like when you walk away from it for a while. I mean, I quit it entirely at it was about like 2012-ish.
Okay.
And then, which was when I like first really started hitting the road. And then in about 2014 or so, it's actually, I still, bringing music into this. I had tickets to go see Neutral Milk Hotel in Atlanta. I was living in Nashville at the time. They weren't coming to Nashville, so we got tickets for Atlanta. So we had to make a road trip, and it was on a weekday. So like we all, the folks who had day jobs, they got off early, and we started our road trip, and we were really pressed for time. And we were all starving. The closest thing was just a Wendy's. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'm seeing Neutral Milk Hotel, whatever. I'll make an exception.
Right.
And I felt like I had just like gotten taken out by a wave and swallowed a bunch of salt water. Like I felt like I just put like saltwater garbage into my body. Like that's how I felt. And I'm like, oh, this is, I can't do this anymore. Like I just can't. Like it'll just be gross. But
no, and it affects your health. Like you don't feel right the next day. My body immediately gets hit. So, and also I've learned to rest. I used to go. I was like, I need rest. And also this is a big one. Like let people be who they are. Like if they want to hang out as a group, hang out as a group. If they want to be by themselves, they're having like a bad day. They need to always check on everybody, but give people space. And don't take it personally if they don't want to hang out with you. That was a big one because I used to be like, oh, they're going to leave. Like, why aren't they hanging out with us? Like, what's wrong with, or I'd be tired and take it personally. And I've learned like mentally, it's really important I stay even on the road because it's very easy if you're in a car and then you're at the place and you're tired, you're hungry. You know what I mean? Just any way you can contribute to any of those things not being bad is, mental health stays even, but it's really easy to go like south if you're not, and misinterpret things. If you're not eating healthy, getting enough rest and just taking care of yourself and realizing like I'm in a different frame of mind right now. I'm not like in my routine. So I'm going to be thrown off. So that's all stuff I've learned from the road. I mean, some of us, I watch them. We haven't all learned all that yet, but I let people be where they are. You know what I mean?
That's an amazing tip, especially for a band. You know, I mean, I do a tour with another comic now, so I'm actually with someone more than I ever have been, and you know, he's a cool guy. We get along really great, and but we also both realize, because we've both been doing the road for a relatively long time, we both realize we're not on vacation. Yep. You know, and we certainly hang out and we have good times, and we, you know, do some activities together when we're both interested. Oh, let's check out this museum or whatever else. Right. But there's also times where, especially when we were on the East Coast, you know, I'm from Pittsburgh originally. I grew up on the other side of the Keystone State from you. Wow. But you know, like there are times where, you know, oh, a bunch of my friends live in Philadelphia, or I have some friends in New York, and so does he. So it's like, we'll just go our separate ways, do our own thing, you know, like maybe he wants, you know, XYZ for dinner and I want, you know, like W or whatever. We'll just, you know, and that's, it's kind of important to just realize like, hey, we're here to do a job, to do our thing. And yeah.
That's absolutely, I'm totally on that page with you. I've learned that. And I also learned that like, you can't make people like our last road trip, I definitely could tell the one guy was not, he was new, and I was like, he's not built for the road. Like I could tell. And I was like, you know, I can't make him be, you know what I mean? Like I let that go. Again, I just let it go. I'm like, I got to do my job. I'm going to do the best I can. It's not going to affect my job. You know what I mean? Just like you said, we have a job to do. We have to take care of ourselves first. You know what I mean? And then everybody else will fall into place. So totally agree. Totally.
You know, it's so funny. Like there's a kind of funny story I think of that reminds me of all this. There was this band when I think I was in high school. This is going back a ways, but they were a couple years older than me at the time, and they were really wanting to be serious about the band.
Right.
But you know, the drummer had toured successfully for a little bit. He got into a relatively established punk band at one point. They broke up, and he kind of knew what had to be done. Right. To like get a band to a certain level. Like he had a little more experience. And the other guys, they had a lot of talent. They wrote great songs, but they just had no clue what the grind was going to be like. And it frustrated the drummer, and it was obvious. And so one time they did a local show, and then afterwards we were all hanging out at someone's house, and the bass player and the singer were like, oh man, we totally need to take showers before we can hang out. We're going to go take showers and then we'll be back. And the drummer was just sitting there, like, kind of like this, like really, we just you need a shower, like right this second. Yeah. And then one of our friends was just like, so when are you guys going to go on tour? And the drummer just looked at the two of them and then looked back at us, and he just goes, we're not. And he ended up being right. The band didn't work out. But
no, yeah, you can't. You gotta all know, like, this is the job. That is first.
You gotta be able to rough it a little bit at times.
Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you guys, and what do you have coming up that you'd like to mention?
Well, we have like a New York show I'd really like to mention. It's a lot of underground garage bands, actually. The Nuclears, us, Palmyra Del Ran, and the Jelly Bricks, all on Underground Garage. It's an Underground Garage sponsored show at Berlin in New York City on November 16th. Nice. And then, it's a Saturday night. And then we finished our record. We just turned everything in, and it's coming out March 13th of 2020. We'll have another new single released January. And you can find us anywhere like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Bandcamp is Soraia Rocks.
Soraia Rocks. Mm-hmm. And then your main website is just Soraia.com, yeah?
Yep.
Soraia.com.
Yeah, anywhere. And our tour dates are on there too.
Perfect. ZouZou, thank you so much for doing this, and best wishes with the record. I cannot wait to hear it.
Thanks. This has been a great interview. I really liked it. Thanks for talking to us.
Cheers.